something was missing. I wasn't fulfilled. I sat in my cubicle thinking, you know, I really thought I would do something more meaningful and more with my life than just sit at this cubicle behind spreadsheets. But had just turned 40 years old, and I sort of thought, you know what, that ship has sailed. Like, what am I going to do now? How am I going to re-career at this point? So I put my head down and I went back to my cubicle. In 2018, all of that changed. We had a lot of changes in our family life, and we actually moved from New Brunswick to Nova Scotia. It was a very tiring year. There was a lot going on, and I was physically and mentally exhausted. But what I didn't realize is that after 10 years of sort of suppressing what I wanted to do, I had also was spiritually exhausted. I didn't know who I was anymore. I spent so much of my career climbing corporate ladders, and I never really stopped to ask myself, do you even want to be on this ladder? Is this ladder up against the right wall? Is it even in the room that you want it to be in? And by doing that and suppressing my dreams to go for something more, I lost a part of myself. Lynn was in some room down in my past, climbing some ladder. What had happened, and the danger of doing that, is that I started to identify my self-worth based on what I did, not who I was. And I knew I needed to, I was tired, I was burnt out, and I knew that I needed to reconnect with myself. So with the support of my family, I left my corporate career. That was 500 days ago today, actually. And I've done a lot of things in the last 500 days. The title of my speech today is The Lost and Found. And the reason is sometimes you got to get really lost in order to find yourself. So even though I did a lot of things in these past 500 days, I'm going to focus on letting you in on a few things that I did to really help me connect with myself. So first of all, I had a rule where I said, Lynn, you have spent literally decades focusing on your flaws. So rule number one, if you don't like the way you look in the mirror, you're not happy that you didn't go to the gym, you're unhappy that you ate that pizza last night, I don't want to hear it. I don't want to wallow in it. I don't want to talk about it, because we know that doesn't work. I actually extended this to my family and said, we cannot just go around talking ourselves down. I'm done with it. I know it doesn't work. Second thing that I did was I said, okay, I need to reconnect with Lynn. So I knew I had to be creative and tap into my imagination. So I said, you know what? I'm going to try and do something new every day, or something I haven't done in a very long time. Now, I haven't done 500 new things, but I'm probably closing in on 200. And I did all kinds of different things. I drove a tractor. I walked backwards around my subdivision for 2 kilometers, hooked arm in arm with my husband. I ate my meal blindfolded. I did a spontaneous road trip with one of my best friends. We went from Florida to Halifax with no hotel reservations. And the only rule that we had is every time we stopped, we had to pay it forward somehow. So we either made somebody happy, or we paid for their gas, bought them a meal. We were just having fun. I also did some things that seemed very insignificant, but actually were significant. I went one day to the hardware store because I had to get keys cut for my front door. And when I was standing there, I thought, you know what? I've never actually used a key cutting machine before and cut a key, so I'm going to ask the guy if he'll let me cut my own house key. And he did, and while I was cutting my house key, I thought, this is very symbolic of this whole journey for me. Because 10 years ago, I just assumed all these doors were closed for me, and that there was no way that I could restart. And I found that on this journey with my new attitude and trying all these new things, doors were opening. And I thought, you know what? I'm not cutting my house key here. I'm literally cutting a skeleton key to open any damn door that I want. It was very empowering. But during this time, I also faced some things that were not very easy. I have these gremlins, I call them, that go around in my head. These are memories or thoughts from my past that I need to deal with. And, there's a saying that says, don't look back, you're not going that way. And I actually challenge that because based on my experience, it's not going anywhere until you turn around and face it. So I said, okay, fine. During my journey of trying to figure out myself, one by one, I said, I'm going to reach up and grab each of these things, crack them open and say, why are you in my head? What am I supposed to learn? What is the lesson in this? So I'll give you a quick example of one. I had a friend in high school that we had a falling out. And I was probably 16 or 17 years old. But I hadn't talked to her since high school. And I sat there and I thought, I actually have no issues with her. We had a lot of fun together. It was a silly disagreement. I'm going to reach out to her and I'm going to let her know that I, have nothing but love for her. And actually by doing that, I was able to change the way I looked at that memory, and it actually mended the friendship with us, and we still are in contact today. So the thing that it really showed me is that we have a lot more control over our thoughts than we think we do. If we can find a lesson, if we can change the way we think about things in our minds, we can heal them. One other very important exercise that I did during my journey, and I would actually encourage all of you to do this yourselves, is I wrote myself 2 letters. One was from 10-year-old Lynn, and one was from 80-year-old Lynn, because I wanted to see what advice they would have for me. The funny thing is, both of them had about the same maturity level, which was concerning, but anyway, that's me. 80-year-old Lynn gave me some really amazing advice. She said, Lynn, these opportunities, those dreams that you have, they have an expiry date. Why don't you try overthinking about what could go right as much as you overthink about what could go wrong? The other thing she told me was, she said, Lynn, I believe that the very first person that you meet when you die is the person that you're meant to become. And our job while we're here is to get ourselves as close to that higher version of ourselves as we can. And the only way you can do it is to find your joy, make peace with yourself, and learn to love yourself. Now, 10-year-old Lynn, she had a few things to say as well. One thing in particular is that she loved horseback riding. I stopped horseback riding when I was 15, and she said, you know what, it's time to go back. So after 35 years, there I am on my way to a stable. And I have to tell you, a 1,500-pound horse looks a lot more intimidating when you're 50 than it did when you're 15. However, I went, and what was very comforting for me is that when I arrived at the barn, 10-year-old Lynn was there. Not very patient, but she was waiting. She said, okay, it's about time you got here. Now let's go pick the biggest, fastest horse and let's get back at it. And the thing that was amazing about it is for so many years I didn't go back to horseback riding, which was my joy. And I've been riding now for almost a year. And I not only, I've rediscovered my joy, and I've actually caught up to my riding level that I had when I was a young girl. My friends and family, as I've gone through this journey, have been so happy for me, and they're like, Lynn, you need to share some of these things that you've been doing. Because the most amazing part of this journey for me is that literally I did it out of my home. I didn't have to go anywhere. I really didn't have to spend a lot of money. It was all about turning inside and listening to my own voice. I sat down one day and said, you know what, I'm going to put together a talk with all my lessons learned, and I'm going to share it, kind of like I'm doing today here in this talk. And when I sat down to write, I couldn't stop. I wrote literally for 4 months straight. So the Lynn, who was completely lost 500 days ago after she quit her job and didn't know who she was, is now about to publish her first book. Thank you. And I feel like I'm firmly now on the path to my purpose. And if I could leave you with a few parting thoughts, it would be this. Make peace with yourself. Learn to like and love yourself. Get on your own team. You cannot win if you're not on your own team. Make peace with your past. And the moment you do that, you will see that the entire universe will shift in your favor. Thank you very much for your time.